right, welcome back. Lesson 4, Basic Credit Repair Strategies. Now that you have a good understanding of the laws to use, let's talk about how to use them. This lesson will cover all the basics of how to write dispute letters. We're going to cover the basic dispute strategies, and most importantly, I'll give you a solid understanding of my personal top 10 favorite letters and when to use them. Make sure you've downloaded the top 10 favorite letters from the bonus items at the beginning of the course. We're going to start by talking about the basic strategies for repairing credit. The first strategy is generally the easiest, sending letters directly to the bureaus. I say that this is the easiest strategy for a couple different reasons. For starters, you can dispute as many items as you like, but I highly recommend that you don't overdo it. You'll usually get a much better response by only disputing up to 5 items. Secondly, the credit bureaus are required to contact the furnishers that reported the information for you. So you don't need to contact the furnishers individually just yet. It's all done for you. Lastly, after the bureaus contact the furnishers, they only have 30 days to respond. If they don't respond in time, the items you disputed automatically get deleted. In the next lesson, I'll explain all of this in much greater detail. For now, just know that contacting the bureaus directly should be your first line of attack. The next strategy is disputing directly with the furnishers. Again, furnisher means the companies, whether it's a creditor or a debt collection agency, that reported the information to the credit bureaus in the first place. Essentially, what you're doing is you're taking the dispute directly to the source of the information. You have the right to dispute with these companies, and they are required to investigate and report any changes to the credit bureaus. Disputing directly with the furnisher can be a long, drawn-out process for a couple different reasons. One, typically you can only dispute one individual item at a time unless you have more than one individual item with the same creditor. Secondly, furnishers, such as creditors and collection agencies, are notorious for completely ignoring disputes, and holding them accountable is generally more difficult with furnishers, especially some of the smaller rogue collection agencies. I'll get into the nuts and bolts of furnisher disputes in the next lesson. Disputing with the bureaus and furnishers are the two most common and simple strategies when repairing credit. This is a basic disputing course, so I'm not going to get into all the details about the other strategies at this particular time, but I'd like to at least give you an idea of what else is possible to help you gain an understanding of the other strategies that are out there. Creditor interventions is a strategy that also sometimes is referred to as a goodwill intervention. This is drafting a letter that works by sending it to the creditor, asking them very nicely, very persuasively to remove a late payment. This strategy normally works best only on open accounts that you have an excellent payment history and simply missed a payment or two. Even though they're not required to do so, many companies will respond positively and remove the late payments while keeping all the previous positive credit history. Another strategy is debt settlement. For example, if you've completely exhausted your efforts in disputing a collection account and you have little hope it'll be removed, you always have the option of attempting to settle the stubborn debt. To do this, you need to strike a deal with the creditor or collection agency by negotiating. This is usually done over the phone or by mail. Either way, you want to make sure you have an agreement in writing before you pay anything. In some cases, you may even be able to get the item to be deleted upon receipt of payment. This is called a pay per delete. Another strategy, once you've exhausted all of your efforts with both the bureaus and the furnishers and mistakes are still appearing on your credit report, you may want to consider filing a lawsuit. If the errors are not corrected, it may be time to get help from a consumer protection attorney. The Fair Credit Reporting Act and other laws we spoke about here were put in place to protect you. There are many different consumer protection attorneys that'll help you on a contingency basis, meaning you don't pay them unless they win, and when they do, you get paid and get the errors permanently removed. One often overlooked strategy to repair credit is to build positive credit, which in turn reduces the impact of any negative credit items on your credit report. In Lesson 1, I went over a ton of different ways to build and optimize your credit scores. Put all of that into action so you can improve your credit from every angle possible. The anatomy of a basic dispute letter. So credit repair is all about sending letters. I'd like for all of you to really understand how dispute letters are built and what to include in them. It's an entire library of the most effective dispute letters that have been time tested and used literally millions of times over. Still, I'd like you to have a deeper understanding in case you want to do it on your own without the software. There are individual pieces to each letter that you should know about and you should ensure are included in each and every dispute letter that you send. Number one, the heading. Include identifying information. Make sure your letter contains the accurate spelling of your first, middle, and last name. You should also include your current home address and the last 4 digits of your social security number. No need to include your full social, only the last 4 digits are necessary. Number 2, the inside address. Include the recipient's identifying information. Depending on who you're sending the letter to, include the recipient name and address. This is usually one of the 3 bureaus, or a creditor, or a debt collector. Next, always include a subject line. This is a quick blurb that summarizes the contents of the letter. For example, validation requested for account that does not belong to me. Next, the body of the letter. It's the longest part of the letter and it's usually divided into 3 subcategories: the introduction, the main content, and the summary. The introductory paragraph states the purpose of the letter. The main content conveys all necessary detailed information and has no set length requirements. The last paragraph summarizes the information provided, restates the letter intent, and offers instructions regarding follow-up correspondence. Next, furnisher name and account numbers. Online credit reports will never show the full account number, so just add whatever is listed on the credit report, even if it's mostly X's and a few numbers. I'd like to point out that if you're mailing this letter to a credit bureau, the credit bureau will contact the furnisher and conduct the investigation. So getting this information is critical to the success of the letter. Next, the reason. Each item you dispute needs a reason to remove or update the item that you're disputing. Software makes this remarkably easy. You simply choose the reason from the drop-down list. Here are a few of the most common reasons. The following information is not mine, or the information is inaccurate, please remove it, or the following information is outdated and I want it removed from my credit report. You see, it's usually a sentence or two explaining why you want it changed. Pretty easy, right? Okay, next, the instructions. This is where you explain what you want to happen. You need to place a sentence or two clearly describing the outcome you want as an instruction to the recipient of your letter. Some common instructions include, please correct or update the information on my credit report, or please remove this misleading information from my credit, or please investigate and remove this inaccurate information. So easy, right? Okay, finally, don't forget to sign the letter. Oh, and I almost forgot. Make sure you always include identification for round 1 credit bureau disputes. The credit bureaus require you to supply supporting documentation verifying your identity and your address. This is done by including a government-issued photo ID, like a driver's license or a passport, plus proof of address, like a utility bill, insurance statement, or bank statement. Again, once you establish identity and address verification, you don't need to send the identification with the following letters, only round 1, and only when disputing with the credit bureaus. That's it. Now don't forget, we're going to be using my top 10 favorite letters that we previously discussed during this important lesson. You should have them printed out by now to help you follow along. Congratulations, you've made it to the last chapter of Lesson 4. We're just starting to get to the juicy stuff. This is the top 10 most effective dispute letters. I'm going to introduce you to my personal top 10 favorite dispute letters. Our software has over 100 letters that covers the gambit of every possible scenario. However, this is a beginner's course, so I've chosen 10 of my favorite and most effective dispute letters, and I've outlined how to use them in this chapter. A lot of people will tell you that the content of the letter doesn't really matter. Sure, they're entitled to their own opinion. I can tell you from deep experience sending literally hundreds of thousands of disputes, the content does matter, and these are my favorites. If you learn how to use these 10 simple letters effectively, you'll discover the fundamental building blocks of credit repair and be on your way to becoming an expert. Let's start with round 1, letter number 1. This should always be the first letter that you send, and it should always be sent to the credit bureaus. Why? For starters, it's time tested and it's proven to work. This letter has been used well over 1 million times within our software. This is the automatic default letter when you choose round 1 within our software. As previously discussed, when you send this letter, the bureaus will contact each furnisher for you, and if they don't respond within 30 days, it's an automatic deletion. Next, letter number 2, Bureau No Response letter. The title of this letter also gives away its meaning. When you send a letter to a credit bureau and they do not respond, this is the letter to send. Why? The credit bureaus are required under federal law to conduct an investigation and respond with the results of the investigation within 30 days of receiving your request. Ignoring the request is unacceptable, and unfortunately, you may need to remind them more than once to comply. Letter number 3, Bureau Re-Investigation letter. So you've already disputed items with the bureau at least once or twice, and you didn't get the response you wanted. The re-investigation letter is a great way to let the credit bureaus know that you're not giving up. It really is truly amazing to me how much a little bit of patience and persistence can yield results, and this letter is exactly that, persistent. So when they say no, what do? You ask again, and then again, and then again. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Next, letter number 4, the Bureau Warning letter. When you contact a credit bureau and either receive a bad response or no response at all, it may be time to send a warning shot. The credit bureaus will all too often play games by responding inappropriately or not responding at all. They may accuse you of utilizing a credit repair company, which by the way is entirely up to you and 100% legal. In some cases, they may simply deem your request frivolous or ignore it altogether. When this happens, you gotta remain persistent, don't take it personally, and keep applying pressure. However, you should absolutely fight back. One of the best ways to do this is a well-crafted warning letter. In the letter, you remind the credit bureau of your rights as a consumer, state the facts, include previous correspondence and/or any other proof you might have, and most importantly, you must make it crystal clear that you mean business. You can make this letter even more effective by filing a complaint with the CFPB, the BBB, the FTC, or the State Attorney General, and include that complaint in this letter. That shows the bureau that you really mean business. Okay, so all of the letters I discussed so far were all geared towards the credit bureaus. Those 4 letters really are all you need for basic credit repair with the bureaus. Let's switch gears a little bit. The rest of my top 10 favorite letters are specifically for sending to furnishers. Again, furnishers are the companies that reported the information to the credit bureaus. They're typically creditors or debt collectors. So let's talk about letter number 5, Furnisher Dispute letter. The Furnisher Dispute letter is virtually the same letter as the credit bureau dispute letter. The only difference is a slight change in the wording. You're using federal law to demand either a deletion or correction to information that the creditor or debt collector reported about you to the credit bureau. Don't worry, you don't need to remember all of this at this very moment. The final 2 lessons of this course are going to go over a bunch of great examples so you can actually see how these letters are used. Letter number 6, Furnisher No Response letter. The Furnisher No Response letter template is virtually identical to the one you send to the credit bureaus with some slight wordsmithing. You are following up on a previous letter that was ignored. It's a reminder. Letter number 7, Furnisher Re-Investigation letter. The Furnisher Re-Investigation letter is also very much like the credit bureau re-investigation letter. The name gave it away. You're asking the furnisher for another investigation. Letter number 8, Furnisher Warning letter. I don't want to sound redundant, but the Furnisher Warning letter is very similar to the Credit Bureau Warning letter. There's some slight changes to the content that make it more suitable to send to a furnisher. When they ignore you or don't comply with the laws, this is the letter that's sending a clear warning shot that you are not taking no for an answer. Letter number 9, Furnisher Validation letter. If you're facing an aggressive debt collector, this validation letter can pause collection efforts and it may deter debt collectors who don't have sufficient information. If the debt is expired, you can include a sentence or 2 explaining that, and it may not only help stop collection activity, but could possibly get it deleted from your credit report. Also, if you intend on paying the debt, you might want more information to verify you're paying the right collector for the right debt and the right amount. If the debt's nearing the statute of limitations, you may be better off just ignoring debt collection notices than drawing more attention to yourself with a validation letter. So don't forget to check that debt time clock that I gave you, that chart from the bonus items. Letter number 10, Furnisher Estoppel Letter. The Estoppel letter is used when a debt collector ignores your request for validation, which was the previous letter we just talked about. So basically, if you give the debt collector the opportunity to speak up and validate the debt, then they fail to do so, their silence must mean that they agree with you, right? So it's always good to send the Estoppel letter certified mail, return receipt, and include your previous validation letter. This can stop a debt collector dead in their tracks and sometimes result in a deletion from your credit report. There you have it. Those are my favorite letters for basic dispute strategies. In the final lessons, I'm going to show you how to use all of them. So here we go again. Make it a point to read all the text on this page, then complete the quiz. Are you ready? Let's do this.